Hi, I'm Cara.
And I'm Danny.
And this is Art with a Lisp. I am a certified life coach and owner of Press Play Coaching.
And I have a list.
The purpose of this podcast is to celebrate artists, talk about their work, their struggles, and their taboo relationship with money. If you're a creative person who believes you can never make money off your craft, we hope it inspires you to hear the stories of the ones who are doing it.
Do it. Well, yeah. Today I got catcalled, and I felt so. I parked my car. You see how like coming in here is like an L, and I had my things. I was walking, and then I heard somebody whistle at me, and I'm like, I'm not a dog. I'm not turning around. Like, if you know me, you know my name. If not,
Welcome to the world of women.
And I'm like, I got creeped out. And then you told me that the super.
I said it might have been the super. I mean, he fits the profile of somebody who would catcall in the parking lot. I'm very curious how, as a man, your first experience being catcalled, you came in and we were talking for like 5 minutes. You're like, I'm still creeped out. Like you.
Yeah, no, I got
you
creeped
were
out.
very shaken.
Yeah, because I thought it was like, I don't know, this is weird.
Maybe he liked what he saw, Danny.
Well, what did the whistle sound like? That was a cat call.
Congratulations.
Brave new world.
Yeah.
First of all, are you okay? And I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Yeah. I'm going to start the podcast now. Welcome to Art with a Lisp. I am your host, Danny, and this is Cara. And we have John from Sure Things.
John Trigonis, owner of Sure Things, writer, teacher, figure in the community. What else? How else do you describe yourself?
I'd like to think I'm a pillar of the community, but
Yes.
Pillars typically you have to be told you're a pillar, so I can't really claim that.
I'll call you a pillar of the community for
thank you
sure.
so
I've
much,
seen you
Cara. I
for
will
over a
take that.
decade doing all kinds of events.
All
And, like, you
different things.
definitely
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
presence.
All right, cool. Oh, I like that presence.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
I'll take that any day.
Yeah.
Jersey City presence representing.
Yep. So yeah, and also you identify as a creator or creative. How
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about that before.
Yeah. I mean, semantics, right? But yeah, I'm a creator, poet, primarily writer in general, one-time filmmaker for like 10 years, musician on occasion. What else do I do?
What do you play?
I play guitar, played drums for a little while, played ukulele for a bit.
Oh, cool.
What was your
rock and grunge music.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was your favorite stage? I was going to ask.
Of what?
Because you just said a bunch of things. You're
yeah,
a
yeah.
poet, you're this, you're
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So which stage did you enjoy the most?
I'm still doing it all because like life is short. So I still do little bits, but I do, if I'm going to be honest, I do miss playing in a band. I used to play in a really crappy heavy metal band called Vexed with like 3 X's in the middle back when
Nice.
you could like do like that. But yeah,
You didn't get canceled?
it was the 90s.
It was a
man.
different time.
Yeah.
There was no canceling in the 90s. There was no Twitter and
was a
Instagram.
better time.
I was in a band called the Secret Cervix in 1997.
Nice.
It was a
my
punk
Lord.
band.
You were 12.
Yeah, I wasn't 12. I was 16.
Yeah,
Ripe age for
We
punk.
played at the Bat Cave. No, anyway, this goth clubs in the 90s. Never mind. It's niche. You guys with the eyeliner, you know what I'm talking about. So what was your favorite band?
Pearl Jam, 100%. Eddie Vedder. I usually joke around, say Eddie Vedder's like my God.
Oh, wow.
Like he's like just when I hear that voice, that raspy voice, and those lyrics that weren't really lyrics because they didn't do any of the cliche stuff that like songs typically do. And then the anger, because, in the 90s, all of that just resonated with me.
So melodic, though. That's what I loved about Pearl
Yeah.
Jam. It was like, it was heavy, but it was soft. I was talking about the 10 album the other day with someone, and I was like, this song Black was like, it was a gem on that album. And in the context of grunge at that time in the 90s, that song, it was like a beautiful ballad.
Yeah.
In the context of like this very heavy, gritty, those other songs like Jeremy and like the other like songs from that album. But that was such a beautiful, soft song. And I remember connecting with that. And I think that was my first little entryway. I was like, oh, Cara, you're going to like sad music. And then that's when it kind of went towards-
100%.
It was like the gateway to goth music.
That was my first breakup that I ever had. That was the song. I did the cliche thing. It was so terrible. I like sat there with a radio. I had it on tape because you had tapes back then. And I would literally, I got my heart broken. And I sat there and I played it and I cried. And I stopped it and I rewound it.
Yes.
And I played it it again, and I cried, and
Yes.
I think my brother walked in on me, and he was like, what are you doing? No, my sister-in-law walked in on me, and she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I just got my heart broken. And then she was like, okay.
Yeah.
And she walked down and let me do it again.
It's a great song to cry. I definitely did the same thing. I definitely did the same thing over and over. It was such an easy song to like release too.
Oh,
you know?
100%.
Did you ever play in the city?
Did I? Yes.
Guess we're done with that.
Open mic stuff. And I used to do like some cover stuff. So I did do a cover of Black at one point.
Oh,
'Cause
cool.
You have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did a little bit of covers. But mostly I played like a lot of the open mics in Jersey because I stuck with it here.
Did you ever do CBGB?
No, I wasn't that good. Oh no, hell no. I was
That wasn't
okay,
easy to get
you
into
know?
CBGBs.
Yeah, no.
There's other clubs that are probably.
I did do if you know Love Sexy.
Oh my goodness, I haven't heard of that in forever.
Back in Hoboken.
Wow.
That was like the next stop to Maxwell's, pretty much.
Yeah.
Maxwell's.
Maxwell's.
Yeah, I missed
so
that,
sad.
man.
Like there's no music.
I met the
venue.
Shins at Maxwell's. Like, had a conversation with like the lead singer. I took the drummer to an SNL party after a show at Maxwell's.
God.
Like the night that Elliott Smith died, it was like a whole vibe. And then he gave me like VIP tickets to the show the next day. Like Maxwell's is great because there's no backstage. Like they have to walk through the crowd to get to the stage, so you can really connect with these artists. It was an awesome time.
Yeah, it was a good.
She
time.
wrote. She gave the singer a pink dinosaur journal.
No, oh, okay. Well, this is a little detour, but yeah. So James Mercer of the Shins. The Shins was one of my favorite bands. I saw them a few times back then, and like one time I couldn't get a ticket for the show, but I showed up and I had a pink wig on, and I gave him like this little gift kit of like a notebook and a pen and some other cool stuff. Like you could write songs on the road. I don't know. I was like 21 or something. And then on his next album, he did write a song about a girl with pink hair. So I'm not gonna say, but I'm gonna imply heavily that it was about me. So anyway. Yeah, and then another time I gave him a little mini therapy session after a show.
You really?
In Montclair. Yeah, I met him afterwards,
sarcasm.
and like we were talking. I was like, "Hey, what happened to your band?" He's like, "Oh, you remember that?" Anyway, and we were talking about how his previous bandmates were like jealous of him and stuff. But it was good. He's like, "Well, thanks for the therapy session." I was like, "My pleasure. That's what I'm here for." So good times. Anyway, back to you, Trigonis, the pillar of the community.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. So, how would you describe like you identify primarily as a writer and a poet, right? You had said. And tell me about your journey writing and how did you get started into that and what has it evolved into?
Wow. All right. So I got to go back to like early 90s. No, probably a little earlier than that. But so cliche. Such cliche stuff. Broken Heart. Another one, different one. Technically my first ever. I wrote a poem about it. I was 13 years old. And immediately after writing this poem, and the breakup thing, it wasn't even a breakup. We weren't even together. It was like I liked her. She didn't like me, and she was moving away. And I was like, oh, my God, my life is over. 13 years old. Jesus Lord.
I mean, your life is over at that age.
100%. So many times it's been over, right? And I wrote the poem. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just writing. I wanted to I just got to get this out. And I wrote it, and I felt better immediately. And then I read it to myself, and I was like, this is terrible.
Hey, that's self-awareness. At 13, I was like, this is pretty good. I got to show this to people.
No, and I did show it to people,
Yeah.
people told me it was good, and I was like, you don't know anything, because I'm 13, and I know everything.
Right.
But I read it back, and the one thing I noticed was I hesitated to call it a poem because it didn't rhyme, didn't have any of that stuff. It was just this blank verse thing of raw feeling that made me feel good. And that was it. I was hooked. And I wrote a bunch of other poems from there. I think,
write like short stories after?
So I did, strangely enough, after that was the first time ever writing. After that, I did do a lot more poems. I did fan fiction. I was a big fan of Castlevania.
Oh, wow.
For NES back in the day, right? And my favorite game was Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. And I would take, my sister-in-law would bring me to her job. And it was the first time I saw computers, like DOS matrix green and black. It was crazy.
What year was this?
Oh my God, I don't even remember.
Castlevania.
Early 90s?
Maybe I was I was 15. So yeah, almost mid 90s, I guess. Yeah, I kind of got on the computer thing. I know they've been around since the 70s or some craziness, but
it wasn't like today. Today, like this is a computer right here.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
I didn't have a computer in my house until like 99. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually when I think when I got our first one.
Almost a statement once you brought in.
It was a luxury piece, yeah.
So
Big time. So I she would set me up just to, make sure I'm like having fun, and then I was like just writing. I just was in love with all these characters, so I just wrote fan fiction that I didn't do anything with, and they were like really short stories. They were terrible. I remember.
What was it like going from handwriting to typing your thoughts?
Very strange. I typed all caps.
Nice. Bold.
And then I printed, I remember the annoying thing was I would print these stories and I'd have to pull off the excess paper on the little with the dots on it.
Yes.
That was
the
ridiculous.
Printer paper.
But it was kind of cool. I got a lot of paper cuts on those perforations, I'll tell you. But yeah, so I did that for a bit. And then I just kept on writing. I enjoyed it. I didn't know what I was doing with it. And then I remember being... Years are kind of weird for me, so I don't remember full years, but I remember at one point being at Weehawken High School where I went to school.
Okay.
And some students from NYU came in to basically just talk about college life. And I wasn't paying any attention. I was just like, whatever. I was writing poems, and then one of them, I was like, "Oh,
I don't got time for that.
Live it. I don't. What are you saying?" That was my attitude, and I was just writing poems. And then one of them, this long-haired, cool-looking dude. I mean, I didn't know what a hipster was back then, but it was totally a hipster. Basically took me aside. He's like, "Hey, man, what are you writing?" And I'm like, poetry, I think." And he took a bunch of it, and he read it, and he's like, "Hey, this is pretty good. You should do this." And I was like, "Okay, sure."
On it.
And from then, I was kind of like, who is this person? Do they know something I don't? I'm going to keep doing this. So I kept on doing it. And then eventually it led me to like my first open mic that was held by The Rift. It was
my goodness.
You remember them?
I remember like a zine called The Rift.
That was it.
Did you know this guy named Jordan Watt?
I feel
like he was involved with that or something, or there was some kind of a show.
I don't remember any of their names.
Okay,
I remember they were all gothed out.
Yes.
Beyond belief.
Yes.
Like I'm talking, one dude was wearing like
this
the
is
puffy
so niche.
shirt, but he was like rocking it. Like it was like
there must have been like 10 people who read this thing. Like this is so niche what we're talking about right now. It's
I had a bunch of copies.
Insane. I remember there was like a paper version. It was like black, like background, and it said The Rift like in diagonal.
Exactly.
Man, that is so crazy.
Wow. That's cool. I've never met anyone who remembers this.
Insane.
This is so cool. So for a while I was like, am I making that up?
Right, no, it's real. No.
It's real. Okay.
Yeah.
You're saying it's real. Great. So it's real. So I went to an open mic they did. I read for the first time, and I was scared. I read that first poem that I ever wrote, which was I shouldn't have. I should have read something different. But I read that first poem I wrote, but they liked it. And then they told me to submit. I submitted stuff, and this is when I knew I was punk. They sent back to me. I didn't know anything about rejection letters or anything like that, but they sent back to me, this is good, but I think that ending needs to be changed. And I was like, who the hell are you to tell me to change my stuff? Yeah. Again, I'm probably about 15, 16 at this point, maybe 16. Yeah. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to change it. So I totally did not get published because I refused to change whatever it was. In hindsight, should have changed the darn thing.
Right. Cut off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah, exactly. But also in hindsight, they don't exist anymore. So I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But that was like my first experience with like any of that.
So there's a lot of people that are influencing you that are not educators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I hate school, right? But I feel like it's structured for like one way of thinking. What are your thoughts? Because you're a teacher now, and it seemed like no teacher really
punk rock teacher.
Yeah.
Seems like a contradiction.
Yeah, totally.
No, but those are the ones that really open up your mind.
Yeah. No.
They go against the grain, and you need that in life.
It's true. They're catalysts.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm the first person to say, like, yes, you're absolutely right. You picked up on that. Like, a lot of people, at least at that point, I'm talking my teens, right? At that point, all my teachers, no offense to Weehawken High, were boring, except for one, Miss Kitsy.
Wherever you at.
She was great, wherever she's at. I hope she's still on this side of the earth. But yeah, that's about it. Everybody else, I learned stuff. It was cool. I liked school. I didn't have a choice. My dad kept on telling me, go to school, get an education, pay attention. And if I didn't, he would leave me like math homework and stuff at home, and I wouldn't be able to like watch cartoons.
Something else. Whew.
No, I mean
like bruises or something.
No. My dad was great, but I'm kind of like.
Was he a mathematician?
He punished you with math? Actually, for an artist, that is punishment.
100%. But he wanted me to do good, and he knew that was my weakness.
Yeah, he was trying to balance you out.
So he made me balance me out. But he always supported every creative thing I did. So it was like this weird balance. But I would literally have to work like 2 hours every day after school just to finish his sheet that he made me. And then he would grade it, and if I got any wrong, of course, I had to like go back.
Oh, he was creating math homework for you.
Oh yeah, he was.
That was his creative expression.
That was his thing.
Like
he was so good. He could do like algebra in his head.
Wow.
Like, so he was like, how did my son not get that gene? And I think he had to.
Did your dad have any artistic thing that maybe he just never pursued?
No, he. I don't think.
Where's your arts?
Cooking. He was a chef, so that was definitely his.
Wow.
I forget sometimes that chef.
Where was your art side come from? Your mom then?
I have no idea because my mom, I didn't know much about her because she died when I was like 6. So I know so my mom, all I know, the occult. A library of the occult. Wicca to ESP, which is funny because I'm actually taking a lot of classes in parapsychology right now. So it's kind of funny how life always comes full circle. Very strange.
Interesting.
But I don't want to get too far because I want to touch on all those things.
Yeah.
And my attention span's weird.
Join the club.
But yes, I think I probably, from what my dad's told me, I got the creativeness most likely from his dad.
Okay.
Who basically was an artist, and my first art was drawing. That was the first thing that I did really well. I was like, oh, I know how to draw. This is cool.
What would you draw?
Like I would do comic book covers mainly to make a little bit of money so that I could buy some kind of cool toy that I wanted. So I would like copy these Batman covers all the time and just like sell them to my family for $1. And then I remember
First paid gig. That's amazing.
And I think that was even before I was 13.
Yeah.
It was so cool. And I remember I used all that money. I compiled $15 and I bought a ghost trap from the real Ghostbusters cartoon.
What's a ghost trap? I never saw
like
Ghostbusters.
The ghost trap where you
do the thing and you press
opens
the
up.
Never saw it. No, I never.
You've never seen Ghostbusters?
No, I never saw ET either. Let's not go into that.
We gotta.
Wait. Time out. Are you also afraid of ET?
No, I just never seen it. I just was not.
I mean, ET's a little creepy. Let's be honest.
It was just not on my radar.
We have a friend that's very triggered by ET.
No,
I mean, ET's frightening looking, but. Okay, go on. So you
anyway,
made a ghost trap.
Well, first of all, I got to give you some homework. You got to watch Ghostbusters.
Okay.
Right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Okay, is that a classic?
Wait, you don't know what Ghostbuster is?
No, I know what it is.
Oh, but you just asked if it's a classic.
I'm saying, is it I guess, a classic in a version of like, there's the classical movies like Casablanca, something like that.
It's a classic.
It's a classic.
100%.
I guess it's a classic.
We'll get there.
80 nostalgia.
To a certain group. Okay.
To a certain group. Okay.
100%. 80s classic. We'll get there.
You made a ghost trap.
Yeah, so I got a ghost trap. That was great. That was my first art, the drawing to kind of figure out, okay, I could do something. This is great. I'm not just this useless person trying to figure things out.
Do you still have the ghost trap?
No, I've got rid of it.
Because I may need it for whoever was listening.
You might. Yeah. I mean, look, if you need any psychological counseling, I'm here for you. I'm getting my certificate. It's cool. But just backtracking, eventually,
First paid gig,
got it.
Your family,
check,
comic
family,
books.
got
drawing.
It, did it, good. They were great to me. Going back to the educators. So yes, I know we have kind of
I'm here for it.
Yes, a bunch of them probably were kind of uneducated necessarily, or educated differently. I don't believe in uneducated. That's like the stupidest like thing to me, is like somebody's uneducated. No,
they
just
were
have
not
a different.
teachers who were
They were not
influencing you.
teachers.
They did
at
something
all.
else.
I
They
feel
were
like a
other
lot
people.
of people go to college, don't know what to do, and end up being teachers.
Yeah.
And like they're there just for a paycheck.
Well,
Let's not offend a teacher,
Wait,
Danny.
no.
I'll touch on that. Later. I'll touch on that. I might need to know. Hold on a second. Wait. Gotta get a.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, man.
We got a refill over here.
Gotta just get a little lubricated there.
He's punk rock. Don't aggravate him, Danny.
No, but like a lot of my teachers.
I will hit this table.
He's,
No, I won't.
he's gonna start catcalling you when you get out of here, just to scare you.
No, so yes, that was like my main upbringing. But then when I got to college, here's the difference. In college, that's where I did meet a bunch of educators that did take an interest in me. Because when I got to college, like you said, most students don't know what the hell they're doing there. Like, what do I want to do with my life? I don't know. I told my dad I was probably going to be an artist. I was going to go into art. I took one art class, and I realized, I thought I was good. I made money doing it. But I'm actually terrible. I couldn't even do the shading grid thing, like where it was like evenly
rendering.
shade this. I was like, no, I had all the lines in the middle. I'm like, I can't erase these damn things. So art was not my thing. Plus, the art class I took was 8 a.m. On a
that's
Friday,
never good. Yeah.
4 hours. I was like, if
No.
this is being an artist, I am not having this. This
Yeah.
is working too hard in life. And I always knew that I didn't want to work that hard.
What would people say when you told them you wanted to be an artist?
It's a very good question. What did they say? They just smiled and laughed a little bit.
Like your dad, what did he say?
Well, he was always like, do whatever you want to do. You got to be happy. My dad was always great with that.
Nice.
But he says, just make sure you make money because you have to make money. And I was like, okay.
That's interesting because, like, from what you said about your father, he has a more logical mindset.
Yeah, he's
And-
progressive.
100%.
Yeah, and that would be against like an artist. Well, how are you going to make money? There's no guarantee. Be an accountant or something like that.
Right. No, he was never like that. He always, I mean,
very
I
loving
still
of him.
remember when I was doing filmmaking, he would look at me. I mean, he bought me my first like Mac. I don't even know what they were called. It was like a damn tower.
The 2E or
I don't even know. No. It was more modern than that. But it was a big tower and like, I don't know. And I had to get extra memory and he had no idea of any of this stuff. And he would come into my little room, my little office where I did my editing, and he would just watch me and he would look over my shoulder and he had no idea what the hell I was doing. But he always kind of had a smile on his face and he would pat my shoulder and just be like, good, keep doing it. And I was like, oh, nice, cool. And yeah, got some film festivals with some of the films, but they weren't in any way blockbusters.
Right.
So it was just like this thing where I was doing, all right, I'm killing time. I'm getting a creative outlet out because I couldn't, whatever this movie wanted to be, couldn't work as a poem or didn't want to be a poem. So I had to go and become a filmmaker so I could get the art to be what it wants.
Okay.
Right? And I can go into more details on that later, but I had like my dad, he was a very big influence on me because he never once told me like, stop this crap you're doing, like get a job.
That's great.
Like, I had my weekend job with my family selling French fries at the Meadowlands Flea Market. That was enough. He took care of me. But then when I got to college, I did meet a bunch of professors that were progressive. If I can shout them out, they're all kind of, 2 of them are dead right now, unfortunately. But yeah.
I just wanted to say, because it looks like we're
please.
going somewhere else.
Yeah, no, take it.
But I like what you just said about listening to your art. When you were like, oh, this didn't want to be a poem, so what did it want to be?
Oh, yeah. No, because again, I like I said, I identify as a poet and a writer. And for a long time, it was just a poet, period. Like, and I wrote, the first time I made a film, it was because I wrote a poem and I didn't like it. It was like, this poem sucks. Like, and I knew better at this point. I was in my 20s. I'm like, I'm about to go to college for poetry. I know better. This is crap. And then my buddy Alan, who wanted to be a filmmaker, was like, hey, I just got a camera. I like that poem. Can we turn it into a movie? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll write a script. Do you know how to write a script? He asked. And I'm like, no, but I'll learn. And I did it. And we made our first film together. Based on a poem. And then when I saw the film, in hindsight, this was going back 2001, the movie sucked. It was supposed to be a 20-minute film. It turned out to be an hour.
Like our
which
podcast.
is like, In film,
Like every episode.
the weird level of like, is this a short? Is it a long short? Is it a feature? It's none of the above, which means we couldn't even get into a festival if we tried. But we made it.
But it was
fun,
yours.
and it was ours.
And it was your first time.
And it was my first time. And I looked at it and I was like, that's what it wanted to be. It didn't want to be a poem. It wasn't a poem. But all I knew was I'm a poet.
Right.
So I write poems.
Interesting. The labeling matters, right?
The labeling mattered. And then once I shifted my mindset because of Alan, I was like, no, maybe I can be something else too. Why can't I be multi-hyphenate? Why can't I do multiple things?
Yeah.
And that's
a great story.
So you listen to what's coming out of you and you let it guide you.
100%.
That's very interesting.
It's a weird thing because I think a lot of people, and there's no shade on this, want to have control over the art.
Yeah.
But it's not yours to begin with.
Yeah.
It's coming from somewhere else.
Yeah.
My personal belief, right?
Yeah.
I don't know where it's coming from. I'm not going to preach like, it's this or that, but it's coming from somewhere else. You're a vessel. And the worst thing you can do is try to cram this message into what you want it to be. Because at the end, and I've said this many times to people and, to different results, we don't matter. At the end, we're going to be gone.
Yeah.
The only thing that matters is what's left behind. So be true to that, what it wants to be, and then you'll be golden.
Yeah, I think this whole thing of identities and labels is really powerful. I see there's a contradiction among artists that I've noticed, and maybe there's a better word for it. But like, for example, a lot of them are very open-minded, and part of that creative brain is like they explore different options, and they know what does my art want to become, or like I want to start dabbling in this media. But then when it comes to like a business mindset or like comfort around money, they have a label on themselves like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do money. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. We actually just met somebody today, an artist, really talented musician, and he's attracting. He'll barely do something and it will just like go viral. Like he's so talented, but he's limited in his schedule. He's working, different retail jobs because my perception is like that because he's like, I said, what's your relationship with money? He said, I don't care about money. I was like, what if you cared about money and became a little more business savvy, and then you got to create every day instead of having to work for someone else or do something like that. But see, that's an example of like how that label of like, well, I don't like money, or I'm, that actually can limit somebody, even though artists in general are very open about every other thing. Well, but when it comes to money, there's a stiffness and a discomfort and like just that kind of like evil surround like that they associate it with.
I think with John and going, I know that we like to say piggyback.
We do? I don't.
Well, at certain meetings, they so piggybacking off what Cara said, John,
the cat calling really affected him.
Yeah.
Go on.
John, when you said that you listened to your friend was a filmmaker, and you did not identify as a poet. I think a lot of people limit themselves in that they're like, I'm a musician, but I'm like a country singer, so I'm not going to hang out with these other people and learn different kinds of music or different forms of art. And like if you're a painter, you may not mix with somebody else that does a different craft, and you're shortening yourself,
Big time shortchange.
Yeah.
I mean, and the misconception of that, right, is like, and I had this misconception when I was younger, is like, oh, I'm just a poet. This is what I do. And I'm going to hang out with poets and that's it. But then obviously going to grad school and learning from like all these mentors, every art movement, they all hung out together. Like the writers, the poets, the filmmakers, like surrealism started as a writing movement. And then Dali jumped in and all of a sudden it becomes an art movement, but that's BS.
Really? I didn't know that.
100% started as writing. Andre Breton was the lead person of the surrealist movement, and he was a poet and a psychology person. I don't know if he was a legit psychologist, but he studied psychology, and that's where all that dreamy stuff came from. And then at the same time, Dali jumped in on that, and then you have all these other, Louis Buñuel, the filmmakers. What?
Dali also did a film with surrealism.
Yeah, exactly. Un Chien Andalou.
Yeah.
With Louis Buñuel. And it was all together. So this idea of like you can't be multiple things. It's a farce. You can be. You can be you're only limited by that label, and that label is very powerful. So it puts a stigma on your mind.
Yeah,
So
we can use labels to empower ourselves.
Right.
I can do anything. I can get comfortable with money. I can make money. I can call abundance, and it's okay.
A jack of all trades,
Master of none.
a master of none, but still better than a master of one.
Are you making that up, or
No,
you've heard that?
that's the whole phrase, and it's exactly what he's saying. It's better to not master one skill, but like know it really well, but know many, right? Be well-rounded, than just super focus on this one thing, and you never.
I think that's debatable. I think there's some people who do really well concentrating their efforts on one thing, and actually a lot of times that's what makes money. They might have interests outside of that, so I don't know. I don't think
as a member of the ADD community, disagree.
Anyway, I want to talk about something that you were saying, because like you had that hipster guy in high school who was like, "Hey man, this is pretty good stuff," and then you
remembered his name.
And then you had your dad who was like, "Do what you want, but here's some math homework." And also like make money, okay? So like these were people who were accepting and encouraging you. But then like later in life, what happened as you started to like put your writing out there?
A lot. So I did the silly thing of submitting my writing to the New Yorker first. I had like it was weird. I had a dream about Frank Sinatra on the day he died. I didn't know he died yet. And then I wrote a poem about it. And I was like, oh my God, this is a sign. I'm going to submit this to, and I had no idea where to send it. So I'm like, the New Yorker, because they publish poetry. And I sent it, and I got a rejection letter, and it was great.
How did that feel?
It sucked. But I was like, oh man. But I also thought it was cool because it was on a sheet of paper, and I was like, this is amazing. They actually read it.
Right.
They rejected me. That's cool.
So it sucked, but it was an acknowledgement.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, nobody probably read it. Or they probably read the first line and was like, dude, get over it.
Do you still have that letter?
No, but it was just literally a slip. It was just like I still do have it. It's buried in my brother's basement somewhere with all my other stuff that I don't want to look at. So yeah, it's down there somewhere. Okay. I have a whole binder full of rejection slips from everything from like, New Yorker to Playboy to like all the small publications that I did, literally probably over like 200 or 300.
Wow. Rejection over letters. How many years?
Probably about 15 years.
Why do you keep your rejections?
To remind me of why I keep doing it. To like, when I do submit, you get the rejection. It means, look, this isn't right now for this certain publication, but keep going. That's what it translated to me. So I got a bunch of those rejection letters because I would then I bought a copy of the Poets Market. That's basically what all poets use to like submit stuff. It's got all the listings. Now they don't because obviously everything's on submittable.com, which makes it easy to do it online. Oh. But back then you would have to literally read guidelines on this big thick book and put together your poems, send them a cover letter, a self-addressed stamped envelope so they could reject you easier without their paying for it.
Nice.
Right. Nice.
Or accept you.
Right.
It was most likely a rejection.
Right. When they're like, this is getting expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
When you got acceptance letter, did you keep those?
Oh, heck yeah. I got a whole, it's much slimmer, the binder. It's actually a folder in the binder with the rejections, but it's right on the top.
It's a nice panini of discomfort and joy.
Suffering and joy, the meaning of life. Right in a single binder.
How does it feel getting an acceptance?
The first one I got, it was great. I mean, it was just like, oh my God. I had to read it like 4 times. And it was this dinky zine called, I don't even know what it was called.
What's a zine?
It's like magazine? A smaller, like if you take an 8.5 by 11 paper and fold it, it's like that size.
Kind of like a casual magazine.
Casual magazine that it's printed by people that just print
like an
stuff.
Underground magazine.
Yeah, like grassroots.
I mean, they literally didn't even type my poem out. They took it, they photocopied it, and with a bunch of others. I mean, it was so like punk rock. It really was. Like, it was really cool. Mm-hmm. So, now I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, there's no design to this. It's terrible. But back then I was like, oh my God, that's my poem.
Yeah.
Exactly how I wrote it.
Right. Amazing.
With the date and everything. but it felt good. Like just to get it like, hey, we're going to publish your poem. We'll
Yeah.
send you a copy. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting a copy.
Right.
Like
That's
that was
great.
big. I didn't need payment
Yeah.
because nobody pays practically
Right. except
except the New Yorker. And a few others. I've gotten paid about $10 total in my life for publishing poetry, which is more than a lot of people. But yeah, you get a copy and it's like amazing. I still have all the copies of books that my poetry has been in. But yeah, it felt really good. And I keep them on that top of that binder so that I remember like, yeah, this is the success. But this is where you come from.
Right.
You
So
know,
what's your formula for dealing with rejection since you've had so many rejection letters?
It's
Meowing?
tell me about it.
Yeah.
He knows. It's I mean the formula there's no formula. It's like
Walk me through your process. You get a rejection letter.
I get a
What
rejection.
happens mentally? What do you
mentally I'm just like, all right, whatever, next up. I'll wait for the others. Because I would always send out like, 10. At first it was like 10 or 12 submissions of the same poems to like 12 different places. Eventually I got so, I don't know, cocky maybe? I don't know. That I would send out, I would do like once a month. I would send 80 to 80 different places. I mean, it started getting expensive. It was like $200 a pop.
You're losing money submitting
with the
poetry.
rejection letter, 100%. Because again, I got to pay for my rejection slip to get to me.
Right.
So, but I would do 80 or so, and then out of those 80, maybe.
If you didn't send it, you'd have hundreds of dollars. Sorry.
When you put it like that, it just makes it all seem trivial.
But what does it mean to you? You kept doing it. And
I
so
kept
what
doing
were
it
you getting out
because
of it?
I was like, I'm going to get into these publications.
Okay.
I will do it eventually because even as unlogical as my brain is, I also knew it's a numbers game. The more they see my name, the more I put effort into this craft. I'm going to get better. You're bound to get better. It's the one thing I knew I did well. So I have to get better at it. And yes, I got to keep putting them in. And what would happen is I would get rejection letters after a while, and there was writing on them. It was a typical slip, but then it would be from this guy, John, who for example, ran the Barbaric Yop publication, which was a zine. Nothing big, but when he wrote, I like this, this, and this, they're not quite right, but I want you to send more like that. And I was like, and then I learned from my riff days, they want to help me.
Right.
They're not telling me to change something, but they want to see different stuff that's more in the vein of this. So I'm going to write in the vein of this. And then I would send it. And yes, eventually I got into the Barbaric Yop.
A lot of
Okay.
And then,
So adaptable.
a lot of people
very adaptable.
a lot of people cannot take constructive criticism. They
Totally
think
not.
that when you give it to them, you're telling them you can't do it. And I think the fault lies again in the education system where they're not letting kids lose. They get like a participation trophy.
Wait, yes. Can we pause? I think that's a great point. What I want to ask you, and it's related to this, when you got these rejection letters, were you ever like, maybe I'm not good at this? I feel like some people would interpret these letters like that. What was that like for you?
It was weird because I never felt that.
Okay. Why?
I think inside, you know how like okay, maybe not everybody in the audience knows this, right? But like, I think you're meant to do something in this life, right? And it doesn't have to be one thing. It can be a multitude of things, like Danny said, right? It's like it can be a multitude of things, but you know you're good at it, so you keep doing it. And I always knew that from that first moment when I felt good about that poem that I wrote, I knew it was shitty. But I still felt good about it.
Yeah.
I knew that I had something. There was a reason I didn't rhyme that poem, but I still knew enough to call it a poem.
Right.
Right? So I knew I was good at this.
Yeah.
I knew I was good with words.
How do you know the difference between being good at it and enjoying it?
Oh, I think you should. If you're doing only one of those things, then you shouldn't be doing it. In my opinion.
So you felt like I enjoy it and I'm good at it.
Yeah, heck yeah.
You
No,
were
if
sure of
I was
those
just
things.
good at it, and even if it made me a ton of money, but I didn't enjoy it, I would not be doing it.
Okay.
Absolutely not. I would have been like, nope, not for me. Thankfully, poetry doesn't make money, which is good. I can get to that later.
Well, you made $10.
Well, yeah, I've made more than that in the past,
Yeah.
but no. But we'll talk about that. Don't worry. But I think I just never felt like anybody was attacking me. Like
Okay.
and it
You
wasn't
didn't take
even
it personal.
I didn't take it personal. I was like,
Key.
oh my God, this person took time now. I gotten a bunch of rejections. Now I'm getting rejections that are consistently written on, asking me for stuff. Case in point, I tell this story a lot to like my poet friends, because it really shifted things for me. One day I got a New Yorker rejection, probably my 5th or 6th. And I took it, and I had gotten so used to it, I was like, all right, it'll go in the binder later. And I threw it on the floor because I was just like, whatever.
You didn't even read it.
Didn't even read it.
So used to rejection that you're like.
To read. There was nothing. It was like the same thing. We appreciate your enthusiasm, but unfortunately, this work is not quite right for us. That's it. It had the New Yorker monocle person on there and all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, I've seen this before. I threw it. It landed backside up, and there was writing on it. And I was like, scrubbing my eyes. I was like, whoa. And I grabbed it and I read it. And it was literally saying, and I still have this rejection. And this isn't in my binder. This is with me. I wish it was with me today. I would show you, but I'll take a picture of it. I'll send it.
Yeah, we'll show
because.
Well, I like to do this. It goes right here, Nick.
Put it right there.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But it literally said, these aren't quite right for us, but we look forward to seeing more.
Nice.
And the editor signed it.
Wow.
And that changed everything. That was the validation, as if I needed it, because I still felt like I'm good at this. I'm going to keep doing it. It's fun. It's a little
after so many rejections, a little validation is nice.
But it felt so good. It was like, oh my God, like the New Yorker. And I've still yet to get into the New Yorker.
Right.
I don't even really submit anymore because I've also gotten to a point where that doesn't matter to me anymore to get my stuff published. It's kind of like...
Maybe you couldn't even live up to it if it did happen, like after so many years of fantasizing
honestly,
about it.
I kind of like the fact that I'm perpetually rejected.
Yeah.
And at one point I'm just like, I actually don't need your magazine. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
And that leads to Danny's point. Yeah.
Yeah. It does lead to my point. But on that note, what would you, before we wrap up, what would you tell young people that don't know how to be rejected?
Wow. I think it's a sad world without rejection. That's the one thing I'll say. I think rejection builds character. I think rejection builds fortitude. I think it builds perseverance in a person, or it completely destroys them. And if rejection is going to destroy you, if constructive criticism even is going to destroy you, you're not cut out for what you're trying to do. Move on. Do something different. Or suck it up and realize that, like, this is what you want to do. This is a part of the process. Learn from it. Move on. Get better. Because ultimately what we're doing here is we're getting better.
Mm-hmm. I just have a few more questions.
Yeah.
I do. I know we're going to make this an hour. So you are an English teacher of college students, right? What are some of the themes that you're noticing in their writing these days?
Oof. Well, they're all just using AI at this point. No, just kidding. I'm joking. I'm joking. I hope I'm joking.
They probably,
I don't know.
You don't
they
know.
probably are. No, actually, I talked to my students about it, and half of them had no idea what was going on. So I'm like, all right, cool, good. Or they're pretending not to know so that they can do it.
Right.
But I can totally tell when it's like
ChatGPT's like, don't tell your teacher.
Yeah. It's like it's part of the thing. No, what I'm noticing, it's strange. All right, students out there, don't get sad. I'm noticing that obviously the skill level is just nowhere near where it's supposed to be. I think there's a lot of reasons for it. I'm not going to get into it. There's just a lot of reasons. They don't care to really read. They don't care to learn how to write unless you have the burning desire to do so.
But what are they writing about?
Right. I mean, well, whatever I tell them to write about. But in general, I do teach a class where they write about personal experiences. So a big theme that I do is personal experience. One of the first assignments I do in my English Comp 1 class is straight up write about a moment that changed your life. That if it did not happen, you would not be the person you are today.
Oh, that's a great prompt.
And usually when they do it right, and I always tell them, like, starting class, and the thing you're thinking about right now that you're saying, I can't write about that, that's what you need to write about. I tell them straight up. And I say, and if you don't write about it, you're not being honest. And writing is about honesty. So 9 out of 10 of them write about some really crazy stuff. And they do it in a way that most of them need work. but I can tell, like some of them when they really dive into the details, number one, they're listening to me. They're getting into the details. But number two, they're honoring themselves. So I think with that, I have them write a lot about themselves because I feel like they don't process enough stuff. They chalk it up to, oh, well, this is just who I am. I've had issues. I've got traumas. I've got this and I've got that. And that's just who I am. And I don't buy that. Because I have that too.
They're talking more about trauma than people like your generation.
But everybody has trauma.
But it wasn't talked about in the 90s.
It wasn't talked about
when we were young.
But back then you just dealt with it.
Yeah, but
Right.
You dealt with it.
You didn't even know you had it.
Exactly. There was no term for it.
Right.
Now there's a term, but I feel like with terminology,
excuse.
it creates
Acceptance
sometimes.
or like disability.
No, an excuse like, oh, I have trauma, so
What
I
were
can't
you going to
listen
say? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No. You're both of you kind of have a similar thing because it kind of is an excuse where I don't have to work on it.
Right.
So it kind of is accepting what it is, but you don't grow from that.
Right.
You have to face it at some point. Maybe not today.
Well, that awareness is the first step towards like you make that decision. Then now you're at the crossroads. Now you know what it is. Now you say, am I going to work through this and catalyze it, weaponize it, or am I going to just sit in it and say this is who I am and accept me?
And that's exactly why I do that first assignment.
Yeah.
That's our first assignment.
Yeah, that's great.
Like
That's
I'm
a
just
great
like,
prompt.
give me
trauma.
the deepest you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hold it. I'm going to take it because you need to get rid of it
Right.
to grow.
And then
That's
it can
my
only go up
mentality.
from there.
Okay.
Only up. And if they're a writer,
Yeah.
that's the writers in the class always know they have to do it and they take that opportunity to do it.
In this week's episode of Hole in the Wall, we head over to the Cliff at 38 Congress Street in Jersey City. Aside from great coffee, they have a wonderful breakfast, brunch, and lunch menu where you could find something whether you're vegetarian, vegan, or gluten-free. I really like their open kitchen concept where it feels more like you're at a friend's place than at a restaurant. They add a very personal touch to every plate they make. This is their French toast, which happens to be my mom's favorite dish. And I love my mom. That's my mom. If you work from home, you can come on over, pop open your laptop, and enjoy a wonderful latte in their back patio. They also have a very warm and welcoming staff. On that note, I'm going to try this a second time.
No, I'm not ready yet. We haven't even talked about sure things.
Yeah, that's what
I want
I'm
to
saying.
talk about how. So he's an owner of a shop. We have not
So
even
we
talked
don't
about
always
it.
I didn't
agree.
mean to talk
No.
so
No,
much.
this
I hope
this
it was
is
good.
No,
it
it
was
was
good.
great.
It was good.
We don't always
But we didn't
see
talk about money really
eye to
much at
eye.
all, other than the
Yes,
$10 and the deficit that
I
you've
don't know.
incurred from your
Let's
rejection.
go. Look, let's make this the first
Yeah,
2-hour
we
episode.
can
Come
edit.
on, let's rock. I
Exactly.
got stuff to talk about.
Yeah, so I want to know from you because you said a little bit
I'll
before
try
the
later
show.
for a third time.
You said earlier that you I mean people can always X out of this tab on their browser.
No, they
But
like
we
to
hope
see
they
the
don't. We hope they
chaos.
don't.
Don't do it.
But you mentioned before
Oh,
that
you went to the arrow, yeah.
Nice.
I like that.
Nice.
I like that. Yeah. Don't go over there.
I know a little something. Don't go it.
But you said you used to do crowdfunding and that you did a lot of
Mm-hmm.
podcasts and interviews around your ability to raise money for films and stuff like that. But from a personal level, like you worked for Indiegogo and everything, like that's really cool, helping people to
it's
make
crazy.
films and like having
Wait,
the
can
power
you
to
say
create.
what Indiegogo is?
I
it's
think
not-
most people know, but okay.
I never heard of
Well,
Indiegogo, but
everybody
okay.
knows Kickstarter, but
Oh.
Indiegogo's the and
The OG.
the OG, and the number 2, unfortunately, because Kickstarter has a cooler name. No offense, Indiegogo, I love you guys. But
Yeah. But anyway, from a personal level, so you help people raise money for their projects. You realize that a lot of artists needed that support and that they know how to create, but learning how to generate money was a whole different skill set. Not impossible for them, but some of them, going back to the labels, they feel like, oh, I don't know how to do that. I just know how to
That's
make
exactly
stuff.
what it was.
I don't want
Like,
to. I don't want
I'm
to
the
get involved with
creator.
that.
I'm not gonna.
Right.
I don't know how to raise
It's a
money.
little precious.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. So for you personally, as an artist, like you had this with your writing, you've just kind of voraciously submitting it, and regardless of the reaction. And then how did you get into? How has like owning a shop, starting the shop, generating money, like how has that affected you as a creative, and what did you need to do to get there?
Can we go from like the beginning, like what gave you the idea to start the shop?
Yeah, sure.
Now you want to get chatty, right, Danny?
I mean, yeah, I want to try the number 3, but I want to get comfortable in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we can always edit.
The third, try.
This is important because this is about like how you started making money as an artist, right?
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of weird, and yeah, it's a little weird. So
we're here for it.
Good. With Sure Things, it's the shop that I run with my partner Marinelle, and basically she started it. And it was...
it sounds like you're in a fight. Like, she started it.
No. Yeah, she started it all. She had this idea that was just... No, she did start it. She, during the pandemic, she needed something to do to generate a little income. She's always been better at that part than me. And basically, she started on Instagram, Sure Things. I think it was called something different back then. But it was basically selling vintage items on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And it was doing really well. Mm. And then we would buy all this stuff to sell. Mm-hmm. And then we realized our hallway, because we live in a one bedroom apartment that's kind of like a railroad studio, really. Mm-hmm. The hallway was like full of stuff. And I'm kind of a neat freak, clean freak, everything in its place for everything kind of thing. So I was like, this stuff's got to go.
That's the opposite of
it's kind of
rock.
unusual for an artist. That's a little bit unusual.
Very, very
Was that
unusual.
from your dad?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gave you that balance. Yeah.
Yep. So then we were like, all right, well, let's try some flea markets. We would do Pacific Flea. We sold stuff there. Again, it was doing really well. Mm-hmm. And then we found this where we're currently located. It was an old thrift shop, and basically
Palisade Avenue.
Palisade Ave, old thrift shop. That was never
What
open.
is it, 561 for our audio listeners?
Yes, 561 Palisade Avenue. 561, go for it, sure thing.
Jersey City, New Jersey.
New hat coming soon.
Come through. I like the color on that.
Yeah. Panther printing, represent.
It actually matches the wall.
I know. You're going to just look like you have no top of your head.
Great. So we found this spot on like Labor Day in like 2021, right? Yeah. And it finally had a for lease sign. So we were like, all right, let's check it out. Because we always joked around like that would be a cool location. But this place is just never open. Why isn't it open? What a wasted space. We saw the lease
never
sign.
Open.
It's never open. Went there, talked to the landlord, and we were like, let's do it. And we did it. And she was like, all right, but we can't just sell the vintage objects. Would you go in with me if it was a bookstore? And I was like, books. I love books. That makes sense. I'll do it. Yeah. So we partnered that way. So concept shop, vintage shop / used bookstore. And we opened October of 2021, and it's been a year and some change. And we're doing really well. We do poetry readings there. We've named the poetry reading WAYE.
Yeah, what does that mean?
It means...
It's WAYE, right?
Yep. And it is the infamous... I wish. Not quite. But, it kind of is the way.
It is the way.
Because what it stands for is the infamous first line of every rejection letter. We appreciate your enthusiasm.
Awesome.
Did not know that. I've been there 2 times and I never knew that.
That's it.
That's really cool.
So, kind of like a little to the... to the publishers out there that reject us,
specifically,
but also, but also a thank you for all those rejections.
Yeah, and that you guys actually do appreciate the enthusiasm of the poets coming in.
Absolutely,
so it's like unironic as well.
Absolutely, yeah, big time ironic.
Selling books nowadays, especially physical books, wasn't that kind of scary?
Oh, totally. I when she brought that up to me, I'm like, wait a minute. Do you actually want to make money? And she thought I was joking, and I was dead serious. I'm like, there's no way we're going to make money selling books. So that was the second time I've
limiting
been
disproven.
Belief.
Yes. Yeah.
Just going back to that. Nice. The second time, because that was for a long time the top seller. People wanted a bookstore, but not just a bookstore in Jersey City. They wanted a used bookstore, because let's be honest.
It's the hipster
It's
thing?
expensive to buy books. $16 a book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little pricey for a paperback, so we do half the price, on most things. And we got some special things, but,
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say,
no, please.
Used books have a personality.
Yeah, they do.
They tell the story themselves, like,
they're their own story.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I said.
No,
I said words.
It's beautiful. I mean, just the other day, we sold a copy of Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. I almost didn't pick it up because I'm like, is somebody going to want to buy this? Because it was filled with penciled in notes. Then I read the notes and I was like, wow, this is good. And somebody bought it.
Amazing.
Because of the notes. They were like, these notes are amazing. I'm like, yeah.
So what's your process for curating, like gathering and curating the books that you put in the
I do
shop?
have one question. Have you ever seen a book with like tears?
Like
usually
stains?
wine stains.
Wine stains?
Yeah, usually they're my
sauce?
books. Barbecue sauce. I actually scraped off a little bit of some kind of sauce. I think it was pasta sauce because I smelt the thing after I did it, and I was like, it smells a little tomatoey. This
Are
is
you
great.
Italian? What is...
I'm Greek, so I get close enough. But yes, we find some stuff. We find a lot of cool stuff in them that is also part of that
what is the coolest
history.
thing you found in a book?
Oh my Lord! We found a letter that was written from the 1960s. When did Woodstock happen? It was the 60s?
69.
On colored paper. It was a yellow envelope, had colored paper, some yellow, some pink. And it was this letter written from this woman, Peggy, to her friend about how she was hooking up with like Robert Plant. She just saw Janis Joplin play. Like, I'm like sitting there like, you've got to be kidding. It was an amazing letter.
Wow.
Do you have the letter?
We do.
We're going to have to show this.
I'll get Marinol to snap a nice picture of it. No, it's like front, back. There's an apology. Sorry, I ran out of yellow paper. Had to go to pink. Like,
oh, wow.
Is anybody going to care? Like 50 years later?
I'm too busy with my tryst to buy more paper.
Yeah.
Robert Plant ran.
It was so cool. Man. Like, just, I mean, we've
Jimmy
got
Page
other
would have been
things.
more appropriate for the paper analogy. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yep. Wow. But yeah, we've kind of done
later.
that. It's been really cool.
That's cool that you found
kind of finding all that stuff.
What's your process for gathering and curating the books in the shop? Because you don't just get books that unique, like, oh, what's available, and then like
no,
basket.
definitely not. No, we go around all over Jersey, and I know that what I want to see in the shop, we just have to trust, and we both agreed we have to trust with the vintage objects and the books that it's got to be stuff that we genuinely want. So, yeah, we don't have like certain books. Like we definitely don't have like, encyclopedias. We don't have business books. We don't have, if it's too self-helpy, we don't have it. We want a spiritual self-help type thing, for agreements kind of books versus like, how to get rich quick things. We will never carry those kinds of things.
Do you have any nonfiction?
We have a lot of nonfiction.
Okay.
Yeah, we got
I always see fiction.
Oh yeah, no, we got fiction, nonfiction. It's like, but it's classics. And what we're noticing is we have a lot of people coming in. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
We got a lot of people coming in who they're going for the nostalgia of it. I can't tell you how many copies of J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye I've sold. Like, it's just people see that cover and they want it. They're like, I didn't appreciate it when I was a kid. I'm going to read it now. Nice, cool. I have to constantly stock up on this. And that goes with a lot of the classics. So it's a lot of the stuff that we curate is like stuff that we genuinely have an interest in, we want to read. Nothing too modern, but we've definitely got some modern books. But it's like, if you walk in, you're going to see stuff that you've either read or you've been wanting to read.
Yeah, it's
or
a
you
lot of
want to
heart.
read again.
I feel like the shop
things.
is very soulful. When you come in, it's like, wow, there's a lot of love into everything, the way everything's
Absolutely.
been arranged.
Oh, the pottery, when she finds stuff, I mean, half the time we have to take the stuff home, books included, have it for a while, and then bring it to the shop because we got to like appreciate it a little longer because we know it'll go.
Oh, cool.
Like really fast.
So two things. I do have the bad habit of cutting people off. And
Do it. No, please. Please.
No,
Because I got to learn how to
This was the
put
first time he did it
pauses.
with his face, though. So kudos to Danny for trying something new.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I try to stop.
We're going to show the Beaker face for what he did to John a few minutes ago.
Oh, I did see that. No,
It was
I did.
Beaker, right?
Yeah,
It was absolutely Beaker.
You've actually already been Beaker on this podcast before in a previous edit.
what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, fiction. Mm-hmm. You read a lot of Asimov, and you have his last
Asimov.
book.
Heck yeah.
Asimov. I can't say his name right.
Danny's dyslexic.
Yeah,
and he has a lisp, in case you didn't know.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, but no, I think that you have a lot of old school fictions that are,
Well, because again, that's the stuff. I mean, I'm reading now is like a lot of that stuff. Like I just finished the Foundation series, and
I didn't know who Asimov was, but apparently he's super important and he inspired Star Trek.
Can we talk
and Star
about
Wars.
that? So,
100%.
I had no
she
idea.
asked
I wrote
me.
an article about that. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Oh, you did?
Yep. I wrote for a. I still do
Wait,
write
I'm
for.
sorry.
it.
I'm sorry. Wait.
Yeah.
She asked me last night who Asimov.
Afro Circus.
She asked me last night who Asimov was, and as I was telling her, she's like, "That's fascinating. Let's keep watching this." Like she just like blew it off.
No, and then I was like, "Who?" Okay, and then what happened?
And then we watched whatever we were watching.
No, I said, who is that?
Yeah, and I told you about the robot.
I said, did you read the book? And you're like, no.
No.
I said, but you know who this guy is.
Yeah, absolutely. He's too technical.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
like-
he's
absolutely
technical, but he's technical, but it's because like, you know, all the stuff that's happening now. I mean, he was a legit physicist, so all the stuff about robots that's happening.
Yeah.
Like the 3 laws of robotics is not an actual fiction thing. It's a legitimate like 3 laws, scientific laws of robotics.
That's what I was telling her last night, but she didn't care.
Yeah.
I did
It's
care. When you
fascinating.
started making sense, I cared. At first, I'm like, you sound like you're talking. You mentioned, I was impressed that on his quick chat, you were like, oh, yeah, Asimov. Or he's like, Asimov. You're like, yeah, Asimov. And then, and I'm like, wait, Danny's read this, like, books by this person? Like, I was curious more about that.
No,
Crazy.
he's very technical. Like I think we talked about the
Yep,
warp
yep.
drive. Like he'll get
Yeah.
into the warp drive and the computer, the robot man.
Absolutely.
Right? He got into like how it
Positronic,
works.
the whole idea of the positronic brain. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But again, I wrote an article about how Star Trek, Star Wars, all this stuff that I grew up with basically came from these series of
The
books.
foundation.
And like, you know,
It
yeah,
was
Lucas,
the foundation.
you know,
Yeah.
Yes. It's exactly what it is.
It's the first galactic empire
Yeah.
in a book.
It's really interesting. But yeah, I wrote it for a place called Retrofied.
What's the article about?
It's basically about how it's inspired it, how Asimov inspired. Yeah, just Star Wars, Star Trek, any science fiction story you've ever read.
That's why
is
he's
basically
very,
inspired.
very important. And his laws of robotics
Yep.
are now being applied. So that was something science fiction, and now
we
it's
need
just
those.
science.
Very cool.
Otherwise, robots are going to kill us once they figure out
Well, AI is
how
almost
messed
there.
up people are. They're going to be like, we need to get rid of these things.
So going back to the money piece. So like you open this shop.
Yep.
You're actually making money with this. Like how has that been for you? What is the conversation you've had to like work through with yourself of like, okay, make money, like stepping into more of a business side? What has that been like for you?
It's been interesting. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time for saying this
Okay.
because you're probably I can already feel
No, I want to hear what you have
Yeah.
to say. This
So-
is feel free to speak.
I'm an anomaly. I have again punk rock mentality. I'm not one to make money off my art on purpose. I feel like it dilutes the art.
Okay.
That's just me.
Right. We've heard that.
I don't
before.
need to basically sit for hours at a time and write stories because then, well, it's a job at that point, and then I'm not going to like it. And it's happened. I've literally did that. I wrote my book that was published. There was no way I was going to get through it. So I had to like figure out a way to write it, but I was getting paid to write it. I got an advance and all that. So I had to write it, but it was a job, you know, the crowdfunding book that I wrote. It was a job. So that's one thing where I was like, and it was creative because I added this whole like Taoism, ancient Chinese philosophy, Sun Tzu, all this stuff was laced in there because it was the only way I was going to get through writing basically a book on finance. So I had to basically make sure it was going to change people's lives other than teach you how to actually raise $1 million.
Do you think your father's math problems helped at this point?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, absolutely not. Because
So
I
you
didn't
were
have
paid
to do any of that.
create something
was-
about math. So I
Well,
can
when
see
you
why that
put it
was a
like
little
that.
bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, a little uncomfortable, but even like, you know, and yeah, don't get me wrong, it's great to like when I would get like a check for $10 from like the few poetry magazines that actually paid something, it felt good. I'm not gonna lie, I was like, damn, that was good. $10, like
Yeah.
it's 2 cups of coffee for God's sake, but it felt good.
Principle.
When I got paid doing featured readings of my poetry, it felt good. I was like, wow, nice. I'm getting paid. This will be dinner. This is awesome. But I almost don't believe that should be necessarily a thing. I think it's more of a well-rounded thing when you can do art for art's sake and do a job that you hopefully like. I've been very fortunate. Everything that I do for money, I like. I teach. That pays my bills. I love it. I realized I loved it when I worked at Indiegogo for 5 years and I didn't teach. And when I got back to it after Indiegogo let me go, I was like, wow, I miss this. I'm changing people's lives, not just teaching them how to do this skill that, to be honest, they could just Google my name, watch my TED Talk, read
on
my
TED?
book. Yep. Read my book. and they can learn everything they need to raise money. I find it boring.
Yeah.
It's like here. But, you know, I still, when I got back to teaching, I was like, I'm actually changing people's lives. I'm morphing them. And it was just like a humbling thing. And even the shop, I always say, people say like, you know, how do you like being a business owner? I'm like, I never thought I would ever want to be a business owner. And I tell them straight up. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. You know, but I tell them I'm having a lot more fun than I ever thought I would. Because I get to talk to the community. I get to interact with the community. I get to I geek out. When people put a stack of books and like some cool things, I'm like looking, I'm like, oh, wow, that's great. And then obviously I get to talk to them. So I get to know them. I get to know who they are just by their tastes. Like I can recommend things. Like I didn't expect any of that. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's kind of punk rock. Being an entrepreneur is punk rock. You call the shots. I mean, yes, you still have to deal with people, but it's on your terms. You can do or not do whatever you want.
Absolutely. And again, after coming back from like, you know, I knew I was never going to work a corporate job, but I did, even though it was a startup, and people can make that excuse like, oh, startups aren't real corporate. No, it's corporate, dude. Like, I knew going in.
Wait, how are startups corporate?
Wait, before that, I just wanted to say something.
I feel like
that's a topic for another podcast.
You're like,
feel free to have me on a second time.
Yeah. Well, actually, I want you and your wife, or I'm sorry, you and your partner, together.
Hold on.
Danny, we were very on the fence about this. Like, should we interview them together? Should we interview them separately? And it was a whole thing, and ultimately, like, I wanted you guys to each have your own space for what you do. I didn't know you that well, but I'm kind of like low-key crush on her, and I think she's amazing at what she does, and like
I was the one that wanted them individually. I'm pretty sure, because you were like, no, let's have them together, and I was like, no, they each have something different to offer.
Yeah, we've been kind of like, it's been kind of nebulous about like how to do couples. You know, like
we sometimes see eye to eye. But what I was gonna say,
we're siblings, not friends.
Yes, yeah. Wait, it's onions.
Seriously.
Before I forget, you're like an onion, and every time like there's a new layer to you. So you were on a TED Talk.
Never heard that metaphor, right, John?
What was the TED Talk about?
He said
crowdfunding.
Oh.
I know you seem so let down, Danny. No, it was great. It was a great moment.
I liked it more the first time.
I got to do a TED Talk. It was cool, but yeah, it was about crowdfunding because again, for 5 years, that's basically all I did. I was basically.
Sounds like you were good at it.
Yeah,
I'm very good at it.
To do a TED Talk.
I'm not gonna look. I'm no ego aside.
No, I mean you did a TED Talk about
it.
But
it's a big like I know that space really well. I do it better than a lot of people, and I know how to help people raise a lot of money. As long as they don't think that it's about the money. The minute they think it's about raising money, I basically tell them, you know what, go for an investor. You're not ready for crowdfunding, and people look at me like, what are you talking about? But this is how I raise money. It's like, no, you don't care about the crowd. You don't care about your audience because you're only thinking of the end result. You don't want to do the work that it entails. And that's basically what my TED Talk was about, is how this isn't about money. It's about talking to your audience, treating them like they are the only thing that matters, because they are. Because if you're not going to treat them with respect and give them more of you, they're not going to give you those dollars.
Right.
And the more you're willing to give, the more you're going to get.
Right.
But for some reason, it's like a lot of the Hollywood people definitely didn't get it. But the general person who wants to raise like $5,000, they get it. You know, they understand and they realize how hard it is. But my whole thing is, if you're about the money, it's a lot easier to just go and find an investor. There's plenty of them out there. You just got to like go and knock on the doors and do that job, which also sucks. But if you really enjoy people, crowdfunding's so much fun.
Yeah. I think with any occupation, the people have to come first, and people can tell if you're about the money or not. Personally, and with the work I've done with artists, I feel like there's they're at such a disadvantage because they don't think about the money enough.
Right.
That
No,
then they're struggling and they have to do these other jobs. And like really, if they were to be a little bit more about the money, not like that's your focus, not be greedy, not like try to build an empire, but like get comfortable around it and understand that it's a tool, it's a resource.
They shortchange
It's another
themselves because if it's not about the money, then you don't have the time to do the craft.
Right.
If you're good at something and somebody else wants to be a part of that by buying it from you, then hey, that frees your time up to create more things to connect with more people.
Right. If you're uncomfortable about money, you're not going to make money.
100%.
That's what I've noticed.
You know what I don't like? I don't like when people say that money is the root of all evil. It's not.
It's not. It's the love of money.
It's the love of money. So money.
That obsession.
Yeah, money is a source of security. It's a tool.
Yeah, it can give you freedom.
Yeah.
If you can make money, then you can structure your days however you want to create. But if you don't have it and you have to work a 9-to-5 job to make whatever money, that's going to restrict you as an artist.
Yeah, and I think, again, because I'm like kind of conflictive on some of these, right? Just because of my personal beliefs about it and all that. But I do think it comes down to also any of us can really work with what we've got, but we have these other desires, and we should. You know, some people want to buy a house, some people want this. I've been kind of blessed, I'll say that word, blessed, to have very minimal desires.
Be content with little.
I'm like, because I've seen where my dad comes from, and I don't forget that. Like, he was like, he was on food stamps and this and that. The fact that I'm not on food stamps, that I'm working jobs that I like, and I can basically survive really well and have a little extra to pay for like classes on like parapsychology of all things. Yeah, like that's good, but I don't have these aspirations. So in my mind, I can teach 4 classes, minimal. I work, at least school-wise, I work 3 days a week. Shop-wise, 4 days a week. The rest of it's all about what I want to do in life. Reading, writing, and the bills are paid, and it's great. But a lot of people have other things, which is great. Go for it. But then they feel they have to have that 9-to-5, and they struggle to do their art. And I don't believe in the struggle. I think that's a mindset shift that has to be taken. It's not, you can struggle, go for it.
But you
Like
don't
you
have
have
you
to
want
be a
that
starving
money.
artist in order to be successful.
And I'll tell you, like Danny, for a long time I believed like the starving artist is the right artist.
And how did that change?
And there's a part of me that still does. It's a small part of me because I think if you're not hungry for what you want to do with the art, you're never going to make it. You have to stay hungry. I forget who said that. Somebody said that. And I do believe that. You have to stay hungry, but you don't have to suffer.
Right.
You got to do it smart.
So what do you think now? How would you encapsulate how you feel now about artists' relationship with money?
I think, again, I still think that so it's one of the reasons I'm not doing film, right? Because I've been paid to do films. I might be paid to do films, to do a friend's film. And it's a job. I just look at it as a job. The art goes away for me. It's just the art's gone. It's work. That's why I stopped making. I made films for 10 years. I made over 10 like short films that played at festivals. I went to Cannes, did all this stuff. And at the end of the day, I'm like, it hit me like, what am I doing this for if I don't really want to like put myself out there to be hired? Because all I really direct movies for and write movies for was because the art asked me to. I don't want to do somebody else's. I don't want to direct someone else's stuff. No, find some other way to do that. That's not me. I care about my stuff, my art, because I'm only here a certain time. Yeah. I can't be working on your shit and work on mine.
Right.
Sorry.
It sounds like your life now, like you said, you have a simple life. You're content with what you have.
Exactly.
But every day you get to do what you love to do.
A little bit, even if
that's
it's an hour.
Success. That's success.
Absolutely.
Doing stuff with the shop, teaching, changing lives, writing your poetry.
And again, it comes down to that whole idea of doing it smart.
Right.
I am enjoying all of these things.
Yes.
I can't really imagine myself not doing one of them at this point.
Right.
And I consider myself a creative. But it's like, but all the bills are paid for now. Yeah, every semester I got to wonder, are they going to be paid this semester? I don't know. but I'll worry about it then.
Right.
But if I'm a good professor, so I typically get hired, right?
When do you get tenure?
Oh, I don't. I don't have a PhD.
Oh, they only give tenure to people with PhD.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, I
at
didn't
most
know that.
schools, yeah. I have a Master
So
of
you have
Fine
to wonder
Art.
if you're going to get rejected every semester.
Pretty much. But the students usually, speak, and like they know that like the minute students see my name in a class, it fills up. So I think they're loath to change it out, but it can happen, and I'm ready for it. I'm fortunate, at one of my schools, people like me a lot, so they make sure to
one of your schools. You have multiple schools.
Yeah, I teach at 2 schools. Yep.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I teach at NJCU and Hudson Community right now, which is pretty good because years ago I would teach at 5 schools. Would be teaching 21 credits just to basically pay my bills. Wow. And that was terrible. That was the struggle. That was the starving artist. Because then I would do all that. I'd work 4 days a week at least, sometimes 5. Sometimes I would do the dreaded Friday class. And then I would come home and at night write for hours. And then I'd do it all again,
It's very interesting to me, this story of like rejection. Like you're putting your writing out there, putting out, rejected. Once in a while get approved or accepted. And then you're like teaching and it's like people love it. Yeah. And you're doing the crowdfunding and people love it. And you're giving a TED Talk. And then now you open up the shop with Marinelle and like it's doing well. It's like, so there's like this ease about these other avenues, but the writing is kind of, it sounds like you love the writing so much that it doesn't even matter what the response is. So I wonder, will there be a point where you stop submitting and you just write because you love it?
I think that he's able, I'm sorry.
Please go.
I think he's able to do all that because he's been rejected. So it's okay for him to explore different avenues. Am I right or am I wrong?
I think you're making a point there. I think
meow meow.
Hold
See,
on,
that's
pause.
why I wanted to.
We'll edit it out.
No, we shouldn't just leave meow meow on because I wanted to end it before meow meow came on, but that
Daylight
did not
savings
happen.
messed this up.
Yeah,
It's on a timer.
I was
They're like,
like,
what's going on?
wait, is that their?
It's a feeder. It's an
cat
automatic
feeder.
Yeah, it's because it's almost.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
Get one of those. It's a game changer.
Please
It
don't
is.
tell me it's on Amazon though.
It
yes.
is.
Can't do it.
You could probably find it somewhere else.
You don't buy it at Amazon.
They're the reason bookstores aren't around.
You're right.
So yeah, I don't do the Amazon thing anymore. We did, believe me. But when you have the luxury, you can make choices.
So you can go to PetSmart or Petco.
Sweet. All right, good. I'll do that.
Yeah, you could probably find it somewhere else.
Great.
But
I will do the search.
115.
I gotta
Yeah.
say though, I've been enjoying the search. Brings me back to all those days when you had to go places. The downside is post-pandemic, nobody stocks anything anymore because they can get it online.
Mm-hmm.
That sucks.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So, but that's the price of integrity is inconvenience.
there you said it.
So last question
Yeah.
for you. What do you know now that you wish you would have known when you were starting out as an artist?
Didn't I ask that like 20 minutes
Kind
ago?
of. I'm asking it in a slightly different way and see if I get a different
okay.
response.
So what was the question again?
What do you well, Danny said, what advice would you give? I'm saying, what do you know now that you wish you would have known when you were starting out as a creator? What's the most valuable piece of information that you learned through your experience?
Dedicate yourself to what you want to do. That's honestly what it is. And be open. So I learned 2 things. Be open to other avenues. That's a hard thing for me. And I know it, and I'm not using it as an excuse because I know it and I try to better that every day. To be open. Because years ago, I wouldn't have even thought about opening a shop because the idea of opening a business would have been like, it's too corporate for me, no way. Mm-hmm. And I just throw that word out there because it's like, oh, it's business, it's money, it's capitalism, it's all the things that I don't like about life.
It's the baby in the bathwater of business.
There you go.
Right.
Good metaphor, yeah. And then I've kind of learned like, no, you can do good things with it, and that's me being open-minded. But it's a struggle, it's a challenge. So yeah, if I could go back and tell my younger self some advice, that would be it. Is like just be open sooner, because all this stuff comes when we get older anyway. We learn this stuff. It's just, what's the phrase? Youth is wasted on the young.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man, it's so true. And I'm not even that old. It's true though.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. So I did want to go. I know we have to go, but I did want to, because you mentioned something earlier about the different venues and being good at different things.
Like more ease about those things.
More
and
ease
more
about
struggle
those things.
with the writing.
I think part of that, if I think about it now, it really comes down to my personal belief of I don't mind. I've had an easy life. I'm not ever gonna say like I had a tough life. I had the same kind of stuff that people have, moms and dads die and all that stuff. But relatively, I've had a pretty easygoing life. And I don't ever want to take that for granted. So my mentality about all of these different venues is those are going to be easy. The art is something that I think I want the struggle. At least
that makes sense.
At least I wanted it. Almost like it's kind of like, well, I need to have some kind of struggle for God's sake.
Interesting. Like your privilege, you have a lot of privilege in your life, and so like it's almost like there's a nobility to the struggle of the right. Like you kind of that's the meaning you apply to it yourself, right? Because not all artists feel that way.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. But it's kind of my struggle, and like all artists, I'm my own worst critic. All that stuff. Even though when I write something good, I'm like, damn it, it's good, and I know I'll send it and it'll get published. That's also where I've gotten to. Like for a while, I would send out manuscripts. And I was like, all 5 of these are going to get published somewhere. And sure as hell, all 5 of them got published in different places, sometimes multiple. So I got to that point where it was so good. Now, at the age I'm at now and the mindset I'm in, I think you mentioned it before. If I feel like am I still submitting? I think you brought up. I don't, because I don't need to.
You don't need it.
I don't need it. Like, I don't need this anymore. Like everything. That's why I did acting years ago, because I liked being in the audience and getting the pat on the back and doing the bows. And I wanted my film screened at film festivals. And that's the reason I did that sometimes. After a while, that's what it became. It's like, I'm being true to my art, but we got to hit these 10 festivals. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, I don't need any of that. You kind of get satisfied with just the art itself and the fact that it's in you. And if I can touch 4 people with my poem, if this podcast touches 100 people,
more like 2.
All right, that's fine. That's great. If it touches 2 people,
not 100.
you two out there, you're awesome. But that's what matters. It's like the show goes on for forever.
That's great. So it sounds to me like it's about kind of agility, like having when you were younger, you didn't take the criticism, and now you're like, you know what, being flexible, opening up to different avenues, opening up to criticism, and then not needing that external validation. It seems like there's a link.
Yeah, the not needing of the external validation feels good.
Yeah,
so,
awesome.
Before we wrap up, I have to ask one question. What's that pin in your right here? I've been looking at it the whole interview.
Shoot. Yeah, this is what is this? This is the Back to the Future 2 hoverboard with the Nikes.
Nice.
This is not sponsored by Nike, but it's the Nike shoes that Marty McFly wears. Yeah, I'm a pop culture geek too. That's another one of my talents. Apparently.
Cool. We can cut this question out, but why Castlevania 3?
No, we're not.
Why was
that
your
off.
favorite?
This is gonna be.
What was it about the third Castlevania that set itself apart?
First off, Castlevania is a classic.
Classicvania.
Well, I liked all the different characters. So, and it was the first. I'm a big vampire fan.
Okay.
Not a lot of people know about this, but if you ever go in the back room of Sure Things and you see my personal bookshelf, that's all usually my stuff in there. There's like a whole section of like vampire books.
Okay.
It's just the thing. I wrote a vampire script for like 9 years that never went anywhere because, well, times change and the script didn't. So it's a little tough. But I have a vampire thing. So with that, I love the fact that you could play Dracula's son in that game, and you could turn into a bat and fly. And I think all that vampire stuff goes into this idea of immortality and like basically living forever. Doing that through art, because that's really the only way to live forever.
Immortality is deeply in us, I think. Yeah. Or live forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so pay it forward. Who would you like to recommend to be a guest on the show? Who's a paid artist who would also maybe make an interesting guest?
Cool. A paid artist. Oh man, I don't know.
Or who has made money on their art at some point, maybe not necessarily right now.
I think he has. Yeah, I think he has. I would say another fellow poet, artist. I mean, at this point, why label anything, right? He's just a really, really interesting, cool guy. A guy named Buttered Roll.
Yes, we actually had that conversation last night. I went to a gallery and he was there.
Is it the 201
gallery?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was there.
Why do you recommend him?
He's one of the. I love my contemporaries, and he's one of the poets that every time he performs, I'm kind of awestricken just by his persona that he puts on. He's
very him.
He's very him. That's a way to say it. And yeah, just very authentic, cool guy who knows how to work with words really well.
We're gonna post a picture of him.
He does.
Right here.
But it's interesting because I remember on the quick chat with Danny, you said something about like that you didn't like funny poems. And he does a lot of poems that are funny. They're not just funny; there are other things too. But like, how do you reconcile that?
True. Well, I don't know if maybe I don't find them funny. No, I don't know. No, Buttered Roll, I find you funny. No, but I think so. The poems that I remember most from him are these ones where he's a certain character, and it's a lot more serious.
Okay, yeah,
I love his funny stuff. His Chupacabra poem is classic. Ask him to talk about that.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one.
It's funny. Look, I'm not averse to fun. I like it, but the ones where I can't tell if he's a character or if this is actual, those are the ones that get me.
I like cool. Every time you ask him where he got his name from, he gives you a different answer.
Yeah.
I like that he says, I'm a simple carbohydrate or not so simple carbohydrate.
Yeah.
We're going to try this for a third time. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. This was a
Thanks
pleasure.
For having me. I hope it was good.
Very lively.
Hope everybody out there enjoyed it.
Yeah, hopefully.
We'll see.
Click the like button, subscribe to their
Actually, thank you, because I was thinking, we never say that, and I know that's such a cliche thing of YouTubers, but like for real, your support means everything, and the whole purpose of this podcast is to showcase local artists, some non-local artists, but really to get them out there and their work. We'll put some links in the show notes where you can connect with John, and so liking and subscribing really make a difference for the show and for these artists, and it gets the word out, and your comments mean a lot to us, so we really appreciate your engagement. Check out Sure Things in Jersey City on Palisade Avenue. You're on Instagram at Trigonis, Trigonis.
That's it.
And thanks again for being here.
Thank you for tuning in, and come back next week when we interview the inventor of the Rubik's Cube.
And if you are an artist who would like life coaching, I'm a life and mindset coach. And if you want to talk more about your discomfort around money or limiting beliefs and working through that, putting your work out there, you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to struggle in a cycle. You don't have to work a 9-to-5 that you hate. You have other options. And so check out at Press Play Coaching, my coaching business. I'd love to connect with you. Send me a DM or like my stories or whatever. But thanks again for watching, guys. And we'll see you in the next show.
I play this ragged piano every night, and you waltz away like the beat of another song, and you leave me scenting the stale surround for your skeleton embrace. And yes, I know that this ragged piano keeps me alive, keeps me rolling like the endless heart, the endless beat that I feel within myself, that you feel within yourself. Tell me, can you feel it? walks away to the beat of another song and leave me scenting that stale surround for your skeletal embrace. And me, I become a paler imitation of Tom Waits, drunk and broken-souled, watching broken-hearted itineraries slow dance on shattered bottles of rusty bud, each one escorted by a crushed smoke concerto, filtering its memories into the ceiling fan of this downtown nightclub, ticking and talking for a bridge that might never come. Because the rustled cheeks of loneliness, that sour milk taste of leftover jazz and open mic amnesia, peacocking amid the barflies and the brooders, because it's here right now. It's here right now with you that I remember all these menthol-laced words you have ever lit up against my coarse matchbox heart. And this ragged piano, this goddamned ragged piano, becomes a minstrel for which I play all of my sad, sad tunes for you to dance to every night, while every night I become nothing more than the stump that you plant yourself